Welcome to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society of Canada's webcast called Eating Healthy During a Pandemic. In this presentation, registered holistic nutritionist Tara K. Antle will discuss how a combination of proper nutrition, regular physical activity, and maintaining a positive attitude are achievable means for Canadians to enhance their health and well-being during times of isolation and social distancing. My name is Sonia Muto. I'm the Community Program Coordinator for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society of Canada. I will be the host of this online event. During the webcast, you will hear only my voice and the speaker's voice. The presentation will last approximately 45 minutes and will be followed by a 15-minute question and answer period. Because there are many of you, questions may be asked at the end, but only online using the questions or chat functions. This presentation is also being recorded. So therefore, you will be able to listen to it again on our website while following along with the PowerPoint presentation. We will send you an email when the recording is available. So at the LLSC, our mission is to cure blood cancers and improve the quality of life for patients and their families. We offer guidance and support to people affected by blood cancer every step of the way. We offer a vast array of services and educational resources to help people affected by blood cancers and their families. One such service is our peer support program. It is a program that matches people affected by blood cancer, caregivers, and their families with trained volunteers who have been touched firsthand by a blood cancer and shared similar experiences. It can be a useful program these days to counter the effects of isolation. We know the current situation presents many challenges to you and your family. The community engagement managers can help. They are compassionate connectors that can help you cope with your anxiety and isolation during these times. You can reach out to a community engagement manager in your area by calling toll-free 1-833-222-4884. You are not alone. It is my pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Tara K. Antle. Tara is originally from St. John's, Newfoundland, and has nearly 2 decades worth of experience working in the nutrition field across Canada. She has helped thousands of people reach their individual health goals and maintain a healthy lifestyle. Tara opened her own private nutrition consulting business, Healthy Balance, in St. John's, Newfoundland, almost 10 years ago, and has recently expanded her business to become a holistic health group. She graduated from Mount St. Vincent University in Halifax, Nova Scotia, with a Bachelor of Science in Applied Human Nutrition degree. She is also a registered holistic nutritionist, as she graduated from a 2-year program at the Canadian School of Natural Nutrition in Ottawa, Ontario. Over to you, Tara.
Thanks so much, Sonia. I really appreciate the invitation to be here with everybody today. And I know we've been through, I think, so much with uncertain times in these last, couple of months here in Canada. So hopefully we can draw from our experiences and educate ourselves and move forward. Presentation that we've put together is called Healthy Eating During a Pandemic. So we'll have some tips on that. We'll also, we're going to have a question period at the end, which is pretty neat to do too. Pretty informal, so I'd encourage you at home, if you have a piece of paper and some pen and you want to jot down some notes, please do. As well, Sonia already has some questions from individuals that at the end during our question period we're going to answer. But if you think of anything during our session, please feel free to jot it down, and you can send an email or jot into Sonia, and hopefully we can get that information out to you today as well. So first thing was a little bit of an introduction. I know Sonia already gave a little bit about my background. One thing that's really important, that when you are receiving health or nutrition information, is to always double check the source of the information and where it's coming from. A lot of times now we're seeing things through the rumor mill, and a lot of times things get distorted. So we're going to try to stick to the facts on that. One thing that you will notice throughout my presentation, as Sonia already alluded to, I have a dietetic background with my Bachelor of Science degree in Applied Human Nutrition, but I'm also a registered holistic nutritionist. And basically what I try to do is blend 2 very different ends of that nutrition spectrum together to come out in the middle of what works best for the individual as opposed to population whole health. So please keep that in mind. In clinic, I could have 3 people come in and ask the same question, and they might actually get 3 different answers based on their set of circumstance. please draw from this presentation things that are applicable to you. You know, we all come from different backgrounds, whether we live alone, have a family of 5, with this everything COVID going on, you know, if we're practicing self-isolation, if we're in hospital versus at home, if you're going into hospital for treatment on a regular basis, even location and geographics can make a difference to the recommendations that we go through. So please keep that in mind throughout today's session. Why the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society of Canada is so important. I think that the support group of what we can have around us is, you know, when you go through different sets of experience throughout life, especially anything health related, a lot of times if you look at your life and your core group of who you're surrounding yourself with, sometimes we might be the only individual going through that. So it's really good to have that support of other people who are in similar sets of circumstance. You know, makes a big difference, you know, in terms of moving forward. One thing I will just throw in a cuff here, because I'm looking at the clock here in Newfoundland, and it's 10 after 2, and on the way to give this today, I actually heard the Prime Minister of Canada speaking, Justin Trudeau. And he was talking about the supports for Nova Scotia and everything that's, you know, the tragic set of events that happened there on the weekend. And they're taking a minute of silence to reflect that and show support for Nova Scotians during this time. So maybe we can chime in on that and maybe just take a moment of silence for our group there as well. As Canadians, I think we all stand together and our hearts are with you, Nova Scotia. As well, apparently today is Red Friday, so if you're up and about and you're thinking of it, dress in red to show support for Nova Scotia as well. With the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society of Canada, I was really touched when you reached out to me to speak to you. I have a personal connection. A very close family member of mine has gone through leukemia. I did get permission from her mom to talk about this. So I just want to talk about our little angel here, Miss Ava. Ava was diagnosed with leukemia at the age of 7. And, you know, we were by her side as a family as a whole. So the individual going through, you know, again, there's so many ups and downs throughout treatment and different avenues that can be taken. It's a full roller coaster of emotions, and as well for family members. And sometimes it takes a team of support to support and cradle everybody during the adventure. One thing that we are truly blessed with is that in October 2018, our little Ava got to ring the bell at the Cancer Clinic here at the Janeway. So she's in remission. She's been doing great. A little bit, I think, after recovery. It's been about 1.5 years. Still trying to build and support her immune system. She's picking up a lot of colds and flus and bugs and things like that. But hey, we'll take it. This is just some pictures throughout her journey with her brother, family members. You can see that she is a princess to us, and so my heart is near and dear with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society as we go through this. And I'll share in some of the experiences of walking through. I watched Ava, what she went to go through. It was a tremendous amount. We are, you know, thrilled obviously with her outcome. And keep in mind that every case is different, every individual is different, and it's important to have supports around us when we go through these things as well. So did you know that? Just a few stats here. And again, I noticed with the COVID, information is constantly changing, and depending on the source, like we talked to before. I've been trying to stay out of chat groups and things like that because the rumor mill just goes insane, and just trying to stay current without being too over. I don't want to say the word obsessed, but you know, there's so much information coming at us that anxiety levels can be up there as well. So it's important just to base it out, maybe check in on it once every day or two to see what's going on. One stat that I saw as of April 17th, Canada ranks number 13 out of 150 countries for being responsive to COVID-19 measures. There are 78 parameters that it was based on, and we're topping the charts, which is great that we're being responsive, and compared to other countries in the world. High-risk groups for COVID-19 include individuals with heart disease, hypertension, diabetes, lung disease, cancer, weakened immune system, and older adults. So that's generally, I guess, high-risk groups of where complications can, avail. Even with immunity, what comes to mind every time I think of immunity, what are ways that we can naturally boost and support our immune system? One stat that surprised me was that only 30% of Canadians eat the recommended amount of produce, fruits and vegetables on a daily basis. And if we look at fruits and vegetables, this is where a lot of our vitamin and mineral content come from, a lot of our antioxidants, phenol groups, great, wonderful things, and it seems that we're not getting them in there on a whole. So we're going to talk about that today with the hopes that we can switch that out a little bit. All right, I've got to get used to this PowerPoint. I'm having to use my mouse. My keyboard's not working for it. So basically, how can we manage our health during this time? Really important that we follow a healthy lifestyle that includes practicing preventive measures against or towards COVID-19, maintaining a healthy lifestyle by exercising and eating properly, and decreasing stress levels, keeping a positive attitude, getting plenty of rest, and enjoying life to the fullest. Still going the wrong way. All right, I gotta get this down. First thing I think is important to identify symptoms of COVID-19, and I found even with the information that was coming out, even in March compared to now, is that it's being expanded upon. So, just check with your province with their local updates for the latest signs on the symptoms. Basically, here in Newfoundland, what our health team are talking about now is making sure that we're having more than 2 of the following symptoms, for COVID. Fever, including chills, sweats, muscle aches, lightheadedness, cough, headache, runny nose, sore throat, shortness of breath. If you do suspect, again, every province is different. Check your jurisdiction to see how you go about. I know here in Newfoundland and Labrador, we have a lot of great information on our province's website that people can chime into to do questionnaires. We also have an 811 number that people can call and speak to nurse practitioners and registered nurses to help, devise their route to take. You might, if you suspect any of it. I would hope that with an oncology team that you have access to your nurses and doctors on a regular basis, and don't hesitate to reach out. But I am seeing and hearing, we had join our update yesterday, a gentleman who actually recovered with COVID, and what he said, first when he had a couple of symptoms, he didn't really suspect. If you suspect at all, don't hesitate to call and reach out about it as well. Prevention of COVID-19 is very, very important. What's really, there's a number of things of what we can do. Washing our hands is critical. We're seeing that does make a difference. Biggest thing is washing our hands properly. We want to make sure we wash our hands often for at least 20 seconds with soap and water, or use a hand sanitizer with at least 60% alcohol. I'm just realizing the typo here now, with 60% alcohol in there as well for the sanitizer. The big thing with this is that 20 seconds doesn't seem like a very long time, and a lot of times we just run our hands underneath the water, and that doesn't really do much for us. If we sing the song Happy Birthday, that will allow us enough time to actually wash our hands adequately as well. Keep our hands away from our face, and I know sometimes it's the hardest thing to do. When we're told not to do something, that's when we want to do it more. So make sure that we're already doing this. Disinfect surfaces. I just listened on the radio on the way in. One of our local physicians here was on a local radio station, Dr. Sonny Collis, and he was talking about disinfecting surfaces and groceries. And what they know is that on some surfaces, COVID-19 the virus itself can live up to 48 to 72 hours. So what he's saying sometimes with groceries, if we bring it into our home, whether, again, hopefully somebody can drop it off to us, it's contactless, is letting them sit sometimes for a couple of days if it's anything that's Nothing that's fresh. Obviously, we need to handle that right away. But even disinfecting the areas that our groceries go on can make a big difference as well. In terms of fruits and vegetables, again, there's no real study. There's science is showing that COVID-19 is transferable that way. But they're saying if you're comfortable and you want to, it's even just rinsing them in warm water or with soapy water, if that again gives you peace of mind as well. Avoid those who are sick. A lot of times we feel sick ourselves. We will avoid people, but make sure that we are fully aware of others who are ill as well. Keep at least 6 feet apart from others, so 2 arm lengths. Masks as well. What we're seeing, is more and more homemade masks, things like that. Masks will prevent us from spreading our germs to other people, so keep that in mind. If you're in your bubble, maybe if there's accessibility to masks, is that those around you be able to do it to protect yourself. Interestingly enough, when we look at the bubble, I think with COVID-19, when you're going through cancer treatments in general, a lot of times we're forced to be in a bubble because of that. So you're probably already scripted with some of this. Now that it's almost like, I think everyone's response to it is that our others have to now be in that bubble as well. So just kind of keep that in mind as well. And if anything, it might be ease of mind that a lot of times, if you're the one that's experiencing a weakened immune system, whether it's medical conditions, medications, whatever the case might be, you have to constantly be explaining yourself. I have a weakened immune system. I can't go around you or can't go around this. Whereas now it's from a social perspective, it seems like it's more acceptable. So keep that. I think it's a lot of knowledge. And to others of what you might be experiencing yourself going through treatment. So food logistics during COVID-19, really important to plan ahead. A lot of times, what's recommended, is to go to the supermarket or have groceries once every week, once every 2 weeks. And to do that, a lot of times we need to plan ahead. So one of the things I do sometimes is I'll actually take a couple of recipe books. I'll sit down with a cup of tea in the morning and I'll just kind of go through them. And I might pick out 3 or 4 recipes I'd like to try over the next couple of weeks. And then what I do is do like a little reference list of what recipe book it came from, the recipe that intrigues me, and the list of ingredients. So I actually go through and I look and say, okay, my list of ingredients, what I need for those recipes, I see what I have on hand in my home, and then I do up a grocery list based on that. And I'll just randomly pick up some things just to have there, so that way I can actually, have the things on hand when it's time to make those things. And I can just pull my little list out of what I made and take a look and say, okay, well, this is what I'm in the mood for today, so this is what I'm going to have, and that can make a big difference as well. Decrease trips to the grocery store. Obviously, going through cancer treatments, weakened immune systems, is trying to avoid social contact as much as possible. If there's places that you can pre-order your groceries from, now would be your time to avail of those services as well. And a lot of times that's actually contactless, so they can actually just drop them and you just take them in and put them away. So that would be a way to kind of reduce down the risk of COVID as well. If you have, family members or friends that, we've been doing even ourselves here, is that when we're going to the grocery store, we'll call a couple of people and say, listen, we're going, is there anything you need? And we'll go and get it and just drop it on doorsteps. E-transfers can be sent to make sure that everything is accounted for. So the logistics of it can make a big difference. One thing I would say when you're doing up a little grocery list, especially with fresh produce, because typically for fresh produce, we go to the supermarket maybe every 3 or 4 days for food safety and shelf life to get the best quality, I guess, as we're going through. What we've been doing is trying to pick up enough fresh produce for maybe 3 or 4 days, and we do groceries every 2 weeks. And then what we do is buy frozen vegetables and frozen fruit. Frozen produce has the same nutritional value as fresh produce. So we'll go through the rest of the week and a half, say, with the frozen stuff to kind of get us through, and then we'll mix in a little bit of the fresh of what's there. The other thing with that, especially with produce, is that you can buy produce that lasts longer than others for shelf life. So for examples, like I find broccoli will last a fair bit of time, as does cauliflower, and peppers and carrots. Root vegetables do last a long time, turnip, cabbage, things like that as well, compared to you know, some of the fruits like I find berries right now are going bad really, really quickly. So depending on where you are in Canada, look at the cycle of where your food is coming from, and try to see to get the freshest quality, I guess is the message I'm trying to send home there in a roundabout way. Cook in bulk as well. A lot of times, especially if you're going through treatments at the moment, there's going to be days that you're not going to have an appetite, that you're not really going to want to eat. And if you've got things already done on days that you're feeling well, you can freeze in individual portion sizes and then reheat. I'd recommend maybe soups and stews, things that have a lot of nourishment. Then on a day that you're feeling a little bit queasy or nauseated, low energy, that could be something that's very comforting that you could heat up, and will be chock full of nutrient content as well. And I'd recommend that to anybody, like cooking in bulk, whether you live alone or if you have a family. But I think the thing with it is make sure you're freezing in individual portion sizes, because what happens sometimes if we freeze too big of a portion size, it takes longer to thaw out and prep to begin with. But this is stuff that's specifically for you. So the family might want something else for a meal, and you might decide you want your soup or your stew. So that way you don't have to take out a large amount and you're eating it for 3 or 4 meals in a row, because that gets kind of boring as well. So that could be a way around it to make sure that you are nourishing yourself. The other thing too is that you might want to check your local area. Here in Newfoundland, for example, in St. John's, there's a little store called Belvin's, and they actually have a chef that works there that can actually prepare individual meals. So if they have a chicken breast, it's a fresh chicken breast that's cooked. If it's cod fillet, it's fresh, and they're making it from scratch. They actually let me go in and walk around their kitchen and take a look and see what they're using, which is phenomenal, compared to a frozen entree that you would buy in the supermarket, because I know sometimes they can be quick and easy. However, when we're looking at nourishment and nutrient content, there's not a whole lot in it. So kind of like real versus fake, if you can get something that's homemade versus store-bought, can go a long way, as long as, again, there's areas and places around that might offer that. We have another company here just off the cuff that's called Taste of India. They do up little meals that can actually go in your freezer. You just take it out and heat it up. So I'd encourage you to check out to see if there's little local restaurants or things that are doing up, like little places in your area that are doing up foods that you can actually have on hand as a backup plan for days that you're really not up to it as well. So taking a closer look at healthy eating. Healthy eating is all about the food choices you make. You don't have to avoid foods that you love for the sake of your health. However, you should aim for variety and moderation. Healthy food choices should include a combination of different types of foods to ensure you are consuming the proper balance of nutrients. Now with this slide, we're going to actually talk a little bit about playing food detective and marketing detective, because I think sometimes there's a lot of misconception and marketing traps that we can get caught into that sometimes can affect our health and well-being with the quality of the food of what we're getting. One thing that you will notice is that a marketing team will use buzzwords to describe a product that they're trying to sell. And keep in mind, marketing teams a lot of times, especially with food and nutrition, they have psychologists, they have food scientists, they've got microbiologists, they've done test trials. There's a whole lot of work that's being done on it. One thing that they will do when their team gets together in terms of selling a product to us is that they will use something that's called a buzzword. And a buzzword in marketing is a word that might have 5 different meanings per se, but that team in the psychology side of it knows that a high percentage of the population assumes it means one thing. So from legality perspective, hey, we didn't say it, you assumed it. So in this slide right here, there's a whole pile of buzzwords. So if you can just take a read through and just even jot them down, so you'll see, I'm going to go over it now in a second as well. But just kind of think of words that will mean different things to different people and will send different impressions. Because a lot of times we take things as face value, and that's pretty deceptive sometimes for marketing. So I'm just going to go through and start pinpointing some of them out here as well, and just see again the reasoning behind it. Healthy eating means different things to different people. A lot of times people come in, they're like, oh, I eat healthy, and da 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 da. And however, when we get down to the roots of it, the grassroots of it, a lot of times it's boxed and processed foods and not a lot of real healthy natural foods. But in their definition, that's healthy because of the marketing that's being done on it. The word health even means different things to different people. I put on Facebook one time, today for my health, I did a yoga class. What did you do for your health today? And you'd be surprised at the answers that came back to me. One person wrote in, they hired a babysitter and went to the movies for their health. Somebody else sat down and put their feet up and read a novel for an hour. Somebody else went to the park, sat on a bench and fed the ducks for a half hour. So there's all kinds of different things of what we can do for our health, because we all have different, different definitions of it. A lot of times with food and nutrition, somebody will say, here, eat this, it's healthy. Well, what does that mean? Because it can mean anything at all. Variety, again, is a buzzword. If I'm recommending 3 servings of fruit per day, I might say apples, oranges, and bananas, per se. I don't mean to eat 3 bananas today, 3 apples tomorrow, and 3 oranges the next day. Technically, yes, that's variety. What I mean is 1 of each throughout the day for 3 days in a row, so to speak. So variety means different things. Moderation means different things. Moderation to some might mean once a day, twice a day, once a week, once a month, twice a year. It's a pretty broad statement. Which other ones here sounds ouch? Biggest one here as well, that a lot of people don't realize, and we look at it on food labels on a regular basis, is actually the word nutrients. A lot of times you'll hear that they'll say, hi, things are neutral about high nutrient value. So let's say we were all together in a room, social distancing wasn't happening, and we worked all the way across Canada. So let's say I walked in with a tray of brownies and I said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming to my presentation. I made this tray of brownies just for you, and they're high in nutrient value. What kind of message would that send? Would you think that, again, because I just endorsed them, now my background, well, Tara's a nutritionist, she made them, she must have done something to them. If you notice with a lot of marketing campaigns, lab coats are used. If you go into any supermarket and, outside of COVID-19, there's food demos, how come they're not wearing aprons? A lot of times they're wearing lab coats, because that signifies that it's healthy and more scientific than if we had a simple apron on. Maybe I put extra fiber in them. Maybe I put zucchini in them. Maybe I put some extra protein in them, because we think, well, that's pretty good in nutrient value. In reality, something can be really high in sodium, high in fat, high in salts, and still be high in nutrient value, because we don't know what a nutrient is in everyday lingo. So what we're going to do now is just take a moment to define what a nutrient is. When we talk about nutrients, nutrients can actually be classed in 2 different groups. There's essential nutrients and non-essential nutrients. The non-essential nutrients are chemicals or compounds that our body makes on its own for survival and optimal health and well-being. We don't need to worry about it. So it's things like our bile and our bilirubin, tears, saliva. The body's just a lean, mean, nutrient-making machine as we go through. When we hear the word nutrients being tossed around in everyday lingo, what it's referring to are the essential nutrients. So the essential nutrients are chemicals or compounds our body either cannot make at all or cannot make in large enough amounts to meet our needs for survival and optimal health and wellness. So there lies the next question. Well, geez, my body needs these chemicals and compounds. I can't make these things myself or give myself enough of them. Where do I get them from? And the answer is actually from the food that we eat. So it's like, wow, food's kind of important. What's in it? What am I getting out of it? When we talk about the essential nutrients, there's only 6 things in food that we naturally get from it. It's things like our carbohydrates, our proteins, our fats, vitamins, minerals, and water. So let's say, again, you'll notice throughout our presentation as well, I will be recommending more natural foods compared to boxed or processed foods. So for example, and the reason being, I guess, is natural foods, in addition to all these things, also have, a whole boatload of antioxidants, which are great cancer fighters. really good in polyphenol groups, which are really good for heart health. You know, the list goes on for natural occurring compounds that are in there as well, in addition to our essential nutrients. One thing, again, moving forward, when you're trying to decide and build meals and all those wonderful things, it's trying to get the best value for your nutrient dollar. The best bang for your nutrient buck is trying to choose foods that are going to give you as many of those 6 essential nutrients as humanly possible. So let's say, for example, if it's recommended to eat every couple of hours, small, more frequent amounts throughout the day, what we need to realize is that not all food is created equal. So let's say for a snack, we were to compare an apple to a granola bar. And now we've got our detective hats on, and we're trying to get the best value for a nutrient dollar. What we need to do is realize that not all foods are created equal. So let's say we put on our hat and we're investigating, and we start with the granola bar. First thing you'll realize is that in a supermarket, we decide within 5 seconds whether we're buying a product or not. Now think about how much information we're going to get off that product in 5 seconds. We're sold on the imaging that the marketing team has put through to us. So what you'll notice is that they'll have certain colors. A lot of times, you know, we see that greens and earth tones, blues, sometimes are more health-oriented foods, just by the way they're sold. The fonts that are on it can make a big difference as well. One of the things I always do when I look at a food claim on the front of a package is I look at what they're not telling me as opposed to what they are telling me. It's kind of like the contract reading between the lines. So if something says it's low in fat, right away my detective hat goes on and says, well, I don't need to look at the fat content. I know there's 5 other essential nutrients. I'm going to start my investigation on those other 5, as opposed to what they are telling us. So that's one of the tricks you can do to see if something's foolproof or not. When I flick over and look at a food label, I always read a food label from the bottom to the top instead of the top to the bottom. When you do that, you'll see what's not in it for vitamin and mineral content. Right now, if we went into any pharmacy and went down and picked up a pack of multivitamins, for example, you can even Google it online and you'll get a big list of them. There might be 20 or 30, a big combination of what's on it. Typically on a food label, we see 3 or 4. So you'll see vitamin A, 0%, calcium, 1%, iron, 2%. Is not even enough to talk about. So right off the bat, we got 2 out of essential nutrients not there. The granola bar is dry, so there's no moisture content. So therefore, there's no water content. So right off the bat, we got 3 out of 6 essential nutrients not there. The granola bar is sticky, so it needs something to hold itself together. And typically, it's done with sugar or it's done with fat. If it is done with sugar, generally a product is high in sugar, lower in fiber, meaning it's not going to fill you up for very long. So you'll eat it, an hour later, you're going to be starved again, and you'll keep going at it. If it is a fat, generally it's an unhealthy fat, which is not really beneficial to our health. On the flip side to that, a little piece of fruit, so an apple, for example, is tossed off in a barrel in the supermarket. There's no mass marketing team saying, hey, buy me, I'm over here. Here's my benefits. Take a bite out of any piece of fruit, and it's wet. The moisture content is there. That piece of fruit will be chock full of naturally occurring vitamins and minerals. So right off the bat, we got 3 out of 6 essential nutrients there. That piece of fruit will be higher in fiber, lower in sugar, meaning it's going to fill you up for longer. We need about 25 to 30 grams of fiber minimal per day. Fiber actually helps to regulate our blood sugars. It actually helps to control our appetite. Really good for preventative measures against diabetes. Really good for anybody with diabetes. Really good for heart health and reducing cholesterol levels. Really good for anybody who has GI health issues, so such as IBS, constipation, diarrhea. And it's also really good as a preventative measure against colon cancer. So win-win-win all the way around for fiber, but hey, there's no marketing teams telling us that every time we pick up something that has it in it. Obviously the piece of fruit is going to be low in fat. You can take a bite out of it, so it's you know, it's going to go bad. So the additives and preservatives aren't there the same way for chemical content like it would be in a boxed product that has an expiry date of next year. Even for the environment, you can throw the core away, it decomposes, whereas you know, our landfills are full of you know, wrapping and packaging that would be found in boxed or processed products. Now, in saying that, so that just kind of gives us an objective view to say, okay, I never really thought about food that way. So it's kind of like shifting our mindset to kind of be more expansive and not just to take at face value what the marketing company is telling us. If you notice in that comparison, I never mentioned calories once. And the reason being is that a lot of times it doesn't matter how many calories are in something, it's how much that food nourishes our body. What we do know, for example, the average granola bar is between 150 to 180 calories. They, again, are empty calories. There's zero nourishment in it. Average piece of fruit is about 50 calories. So again, that's jam-packed with nutrient content. Now, in saying that, if you're going through chemo treatments and you're having days that you've been really sick, calories are important in between, to kind of, because there's days on end that you might go and not eat. So you'll notice in hospitals sometimes they'll hook us up to liquid nutrition and take care of it that way. But when it is, we do have the opportunity to eat, we want to make sure that we're getting healthy calories in there as well. Like, I'd sooner eat 190 healthy calories that are full of nutrients than 90 empty calories. So I'd encourage you to, if I have an apple, I'm going to put some natural nut butter with it. So whether it be natural almond butter, natural cashew butter, natural peanut butter, because I can get the caloric range equivalent to what that granola bar is, but I can actually have a way healthier outcome because of the way I'm combining my food. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that as well. What we are seeing as a society in a whole, a few years back, I went into Memorial University here in Newfoundland and gave a lunch and learn, something like this. It was a full hour's length presentation. So everybody walked into the room and we had the screen up ready to go. And I stood there and I said, guess what? We're not doing my presentation today. And everybody said, well, if we're not doing your presentation, what are we going to talk about? We've got an hour here. So what I did is put people on the spot and I asked them to go back to their offices and bring down their snacks. Like, let's get hands-on and look what you've got here for snacks. Out of a group of 40 people, 3 people said, Tara, my fruit and yogurt are in the fridge. Do you want me to go to the fridge and get it? Everybody else went back to their office, and on average, they brought down 4 boxes of products each. So they had their snacks because, again, it was things like the oat cakes and 90-calorie snacks. There was granola bars, a whole pile of things. So zero nourishment with a lot of empty calories. So yes, they were eating every couple of hours. However, the quality of food was not the same. So that can be detrimental to our health in the long run because, again, a lot of times we're malnourished because of that if we're going that way. So what we're seeing is that there's a trend for quick, easy, convenient foods by, oh, here, open this package, is quick and easy. I think we can make our healthy foods convenient by making them ahead of time and bringing them with us. So if it means that, again, you know that you're going to go into the hospital for the day, whatever the case might be, you're going to a doctor's appointment, I would probably pack a little snack bag and take with you with your healthy foods in there so you have something that you can rely on. Because at the end of the day, we're the only ones who can be responsible for the foods that we eat and nourishing our body as well. So I hope that makes sense on a broad spectrum. I know it's difficult to get into everything, but we're going to talk a little bit more and take a closer look at nutrition as well. Timing of meals is really important. Now, ideally, you get up in the morning, we want to eat within an hour, and then make sure we're eating every 2 to 3 hours from there and space it throughout the daytime. If you're having a day that you've been nauseous and really, really sick, if you can't eat the full of something like a whole meal or a whole snack, eat partial and save the rest. You can have it 45 minutes, an hour later. So that way you're constantly picking. So that way at the end of the day, we can get enough fuel into you as well. Balancing of meals is really important. I've got on one of our slides here, the new food guide that was preempted last year. I'm going to show you what your plate should look like and come up with some ideas as well. Really important to make sure that we have fun with food. And, a lot of times, especially with everything going on with COVID-19, like a lot of times like we'd have cooking parties or dinner parties that, everybody can make something and do that together. And a lot of times we get together and eat the meal. Whereas we can still probably do that from a virtual standpoint and share the meal. So it might be that if we are making stuff up in bulk, you might freeze a couple of portions for you and, share with somebody else, vice versa. Somebody else in the community might do up some things and share with us. So that would be a great way to get some variety and to kind of spark it. The other thing as well, because I know with different medications with the treatments that you might be going through, a lot of times we're feeling nauseated. Obviously, we're not going to be very hungry. Food is not going to be appealing. Appetite can be suppressed. But the other thing is that sometimes with some of the medications is that it can leave a metallic flavor and taste in our mouth, so our taste can be altered. So that's something to be very aware of. So you might want to use a little bit more spice, and that might actually help with that to flavor food. But it's being fun and creative. And believe it or not, and I think the marketing companies are onto this, and you know, we can learn a lot from them and kind of steal their ideas and put our own spin on it. The biggest catch with this is making sure that we advertise real food and natural foods to ourselves in our own home. So it might be how food looks can make a big difference. You know, set the table for yourself. You know, presenting food on a certain way on a plate. You know, eating food on a plate as opposed to a plastic container can make a big difference. Our natural physiological response to food is that smell is a big part of it. So do you ever notice sometimes you go into a supermarket and right when you walk in the door, that's where they've got like the rotisserie chicken in their hands, you get a big smell. It's like, oh my heavens, that smells so good. What happens with the sensory side of our body and how we work from a physiological perspective is that I just realized I touched my face, so I've actually put hand sanitizer here for every time I do it. I'm trying to practice what I preach as we go through, but what you'll notice is that when we go in and stuff, they're kind of blowing it right in our faces, and that actually makes us hungry. Visualization does it as well. If you notice sometimes with commercials on TV, recipe books, billboards, all those wonderful things, is that they've got these great big pictures of food, and those sensories will actually start the digestive process by you know, getting our body to release saliva. It goes down into our stomach, which produces more hydrochloric acid and makes us more hungry. So that can be appealing to us. So if you're finding that you're really nauseated and your appetite's not really all of that, really focus on how food looks, and that will make a big difference to you, because again, it's going to be more appealing if we can get that natural stimuli happening in your body to starting the digestive process, because everything else in your body is going to be wanting to shut that down as well. Obviously, we talked a little bit about getting the best value for your nutrient dollar for nutrient content, but price point's also important as well. One thing I try to do is to read flyers and see what's on sale. So obviously there's paper flyers. I know here in St. John's they're still being passed around, but you know, or dropped off on a weekly basis. But you can also access flyers online. So what I do sometimes when I go to pick meals of what I'm going to have for the week is I'll look at what's on sale, and I'll actually pick something up based on that and base a recipe around it. So I don't know, if chicken was on sale versus salmon, I might actually plan a meal around that. So that way I've got fresh that I can use, you know, right away. The biggest thing with high quality protein is that it is expensive. And if you can get that on sale, you can actually save a fair bit on your groceries moving forward as well. And I usually try to buy in bulk when it is on sale, if you have the opportunity and you have deep freeze space. So if a family pack of chicken breast goes on sale, I might go and buy 4 or 5 packages and freeze it. So that way it's there for when I need it. And that's something that can make a big difference as well. Alrighty, so I'm going to flip to the next screen. And when I do that, I'd like for you to take a quick peek. And the idea is which meal looks better to you. So we're kind of going to emphasize on getting your appetite stimulated as well. So there's 2 pictures on the next slide. Look at the one on the right and one on the left and see which one looks better to you. Again, this is different for everybody. The whole idea with this screen, we find foods are appealing in different ways. I put this up here because actually it's the same foods that are in both of those pictures. They're just displayed differently. So some people like the one on the right a little bit better because that catches your eye with color, all those wonderful things. The one on the left, spread out a little bit more. If you like things separated on your plate, that might work for you. So the idea with it is make your food you know, market it to yourself. And, you know, sometimes I take pictures of food and put on Facebook and things like that, just to kind of get the idea of, my heavens, that looks good. That will actually pique us to create meals like that and be our own little chef at home as well. The other thing, and again, we alluded to earlier with the stats about only 30% of Canadians consuming the proper amount of recommended amount of produce on a daily basis, is that we need to market produce to ourselves as well. So again, do these fruits and veggies look yummy to you? This here is actually slides from a few years back. We have a local TV station here, a show called Out of the Fog, and they came into my home as part of it, and we taped, I think it was 8 episodes. It was called Healthy Bellies, and once a month, it was like an 8 to 10 minute segment. They aired it, so we did all kinds of different topics. But this was one on marketing produce as well. If you can see here in these pictures, again, we've got our peppers, we've got cucumbers, we've got some fruit there all cut up as well. I went to a local store here and bought a little kit that I could actually make shapes and out of my fruit. So we made some little lollipops kind of thing out of fresh fruit. It's great for kids, but it's also great for adults, for all children at heart. If you notice throughout this presentation, there's little cartoon pics. That's the whole purpose. It's to kind of help do things that kind of gives us that warm, fuzzy feeling. But it kind of draws into our emotional side. Donald Duck was in one of the slides there earlier, and it can bring us back from our childhood just by doing things. So marketers will do that to us as well. But by marketing this, I've done this for adult parties, and it goes off really well. You wouldn't believe how fast the produce flies off of platters and display things when we actually market it. It's incredible. So there could be little things and activities, especially now that we have more time on our hands with COVID-19 measures. We can actually dress things up and jazz things up. One of the things I did too as part of that kit, you can see that in the top right picture, the cucumbers, for example, we put stars in there. The peppers were actually done like hearts and different things like that. We made pizzas, and that's in the picture on the left, the second dish from the left. Or sorry, second dish from your right is a pizza, but we put the different shapes of the vegetables on the pizza as well. And it was actually fun. I did them up and froze them, and we take it out, and it just felt like you were eating something a little bit different, even though it came from our own kitchen. And keep in mind, healthy eating does start in the kitchen, so that's where it's really important to make sure that we're doing things that appeal and we can have fun with it as we're going through as well. What are your thoughts on our new food guide? I know this came out last year. It's different from the food guide of what we all grew up with our rainbow and number of servings per day. Sometimes it looks pretty general when we look at it. Interestingly enough, my take and my spin on this is that they actually took the old food guide, reflected in on what our portion sizes should be, and said, this is how you build a meal, and this is how you balance a meal, and this is how your plate should look. If we're balancing our plates like this with every meal, you're automatically going to get the recommended amounts in per day. So we have been saying for years, half our plate should be vegetables, a quarter is our protein, a quarter is our starch. Now, obviously, there's things I'd change up. So for example, if you look at the bottom right-hand side, we have some starches there as well. But over under the vegetables and fruits area, there is squash and potato, and even though they're a vegetable, I'd be more aligned to put those over with the starches because they're heavier and heartier and they have more of a starchy impact on the body as opposed to more of a vegetable content as well. So just to get an idea, so basically they're just re-emptying of how our plate should look at. They're also factoring in different ethnic backgrounds, and I think that's a great way to do it as well. You can see that there's more beans and lentils, which are great sources of fiber there as well, which is great, and good sources of protein. So I try to do combinations of different types of protein as well. Making sure that, again, we're drinking water for choice, especially if you've had a lot of vomiting and diarrhea. You really need to make sure that your water content is adequate. What is recommended is about 2 liters per day. Again, so we've got 500 ml bottles, is about 4 bottles of water per day, every day, to make sure that we are, flushing through and making sure that we stay hydrated as well, because we can get pretty sick if that's the case there as well. So just to be familiar, you can find this here, and again, full variety of information on this on Health Canada's website. I mean, they're obviously recommending that we're eating, making more foods at home, socializing and having fun with food. So you might even, using Zoom, have a cooking party with somebody and actually invite people into your kitchen that way as well. We can still practice. Just because we're social distancing doesn't mean that we don't need to be social. We can still be social, and technology can be our friends there as well. And that does a lot for our heart and soul as we're going through there as well. So take a peek. I'd encourage you, Health Canada, if you Google Health Canada, Food Guide 2019, I think it will come in. You'll get this up, and it'll give you the 2 to 3 pages of information on it as well. But it is basically just reiterating what the old food guide told us, using natural, real food as opposed to boxed and processed foods, kind of like the things we're talking about today here already. So let's see again if we can build some healthy meals. Again, it's all about balance, right? So for example, I had some chicken breasts home, and I had 4 chicken breasts. So I threw them in the oven and baked them on 350 for about 25 minutes. Took them out, chunked them up, and I said, I'm in the mood for some pizza. So I made up some pizzas, and I had some nachos. So out of my 4 chicken breasts, I got seven meals out of this, 7 servings. But when I cut the chicken up and spaced it out, so 4 chicken breasts over 7 meals, that didn't give me adequate amounts of healthy protein. So what I did is added a little bit of black bean to it to up my protein content, so to top it up. These froze really well, and it was a great way to get a good balance of foods. And what I had was just a little veggie tray on the side, just that I had with a little bit of hummus or tzatziki sauce. I can't remember what I had with it that day. And that was just a great way to balance your meal off. Again, it's something that if you are feeling sick that day, you could just kind of pick at it throughout, and that could be something that you can enjoy as well. And obviously, if we look at it, it's quote unquote something like pub grub, pizza and nachos, but we can do a healthy variation. So nothing has to be cut out of the diet, which is great. Over here on the right, my best friend actually sent me this. We got to have it. We're all taking pictures of our foods that we're eating and sending them to each other. But this was a breakfast of what she did. She just had some scrambled eggs with some veggies and a banana. But you can see how can you not look at that picture and smile, or not smile. So the big thing is that there could be ways that we're doing it to make it that's a little bit more appealing to us and enjoyable. You notice there is a cup of tea in that picture. I'm not opposed to caffeine. Obviously, with medications, you want to make sure that there's no interference with it. But it's just a quantity of what we have. I've worked with some people who sometimes have 10 or 15 cups throughout a day, which is extreme. But if we're doing one here or there, it's not the end of the world as long as it doesn't interfere with any of your medications. So double check that as well. So making our plate a healthy balance. So again, on the left-hand side, this was a salmon dinner that we had. So we had our serving of salmon. Here, there's also on some of the plates there, it's you can see roasted potato, but we also roasted some cauliflower. And the cauliflower basically was just done with a little bit of oil and a little bit of paprika and put in the oven and roasted at 350 degrees for about, I think it was 18 minutes, and it came out absolutely divine. It was so good. And then we put some asparagus for color. So the more color there is in a meal, you're more likely to get that nutrient breakdown of what we're looking for there as well. And the next picture in is a homemade beef stew that we did. And what we do, and when I do stew, is that I usually cook the potatoes separate, because potatoes, obviously, they don't freeze well. And loaded it up with some carrot and turnip, put some peas in here, and some frozen vegetables mixed in with the fresh, and it's absolutely delicious. The ongoing joke at our house, if you can see in that picture, is our little friend Max sits up to the table. He doesn't get on the table, so we're we're grateful for that, for proper food safety and hygiene. But he just seems to get up, so we just put a plate in front of him and is serving, and he's wishing he could have it, but it's a no-go. He's cat food only for his needs. Decided another day to have a barbecue. I was in the mood for twice baked potatoes, and again looked at what I had in my pantry versus how much quantity. I didn't really have a whole lot of anything, so I did kind of whip this together. I found a recipe online for a twice baked potato casserole, so it didn't use as much of everything. So basically, I had my potatoes and mashed them down and put a little bit of sour cream and cheese into it, and put some green onion in over the top, and just baked it in the oven to twice bake it that way. And it was great. And you can see on the bottom right-hand corner, that was how I built my meal out of the barbecue meal that's on top of it. So I had some peppers and mushrooms and onions and some garden salad as well. So my portion size of that twice baked potato was actually really small. You need to be careful that when you are feeling really nauseated, dairy products sometimes can curdle in our stomach, so you want to keep them to a minimal. So that would be something to have depending on the type of day of what you're having. So meal balancing is also important. We don't have to avoid anything for our health. However, we should make sure that that balance is there, and we can include anything into a healthy eating routine. Now, natural health supplements comes up a lot. And I wanted to put this slide in here just to comment on this. And I know in our questions, we're probably going to get more detail on this as well. But just in general, I'd encourage you with natural health products and supplements, always, always, always consult your oncology team, your physicians, about taking anything that's sold over the counter before you take it, because some of these medications and that you're taking can actually interfere. Natural health products can interfere with the medication and treatments, so it doesn't have to be one or the other. Sometimes you can do a mixture of natural health products with with the medications that you're taking. However, you need to check with your health team. Information out there, a lot of times, even the marketing with natural health products and even vitamins and minerals, things like that as well, and supplements in general. What I've seen even in magazine articles is that it's paid advertising and we don't even realize it. A lot of times they script it so it looks like it's an interview by Maclean's or Chanteline or whatever magazine might be putting it there. And when you get to the bottom of it in small print, you'll see that this is actually paid advertising to push something. Keep in mind, what works for one does not work at all. During my time in Ottawa, I was actually recruited by Shoppers Drug Mart, and I was a liaison between the pharmacy and natural health products. And through in-house consultations with customers coming in and clients, a lot of times people were not revealing to their pharmacist or their physician if they were taking natural health products or any over-the-counter supplements, simply because, again, they thought it was over-the-counter, it was safe to take and not to worry about it. For example, I did have a client came in and who was severe diabetic, and they were having a hard time regulating their blood sugars. And when I sat down and we started talking, and I asked her about specifically natural health products, she was taking close to 30 different combinations of different products, and some of them had a direct hit on her blood sugars, and it wasn't for the best. So it was interacting, I guess, with the medications and things she was doing with her food. So it was kind of too much. So for me to go in and say no natural health products, her value and belief system was aligned with, okay, these things are beneficial, these things are helping. So what I did is did up a list and showed that this is what it's interfering with everything she was taking, so she could see the full picture on it. So that's something to be very, very careful of. So make sure you're consulting your health team before taking anything. One thing, again, I just want to mention probiotics, immune boosters, vitamin minerals, medications, for example. With immune boosters, be very, very careful that a lot of supplements that are green, so sometimes you can get them in powder form, they have tremendously high amounts of vitamin K into it. So a lot of times we hear of potassium, and that has the chemical symbol of K. Vitamin K is something that's completely different. Vitamin K is a fat-soluble vitamin and is found in dark green. So it's found naturally in our foods. So things like broccoli, spinach, kale, kiwi would naturally have higher amounts of vitamin K. For us to eat too much of it and reach a toxicity level, you'd have to eat a boatload, which nature kind of protects us from, because those foods are also high in fiber. So they're going to go through our system really, really fast. So we're probably not going to absorb a lot of it. So vitamin K, again, because it's a natural blood clotter, it can actually clot and contribute to stroke. So what we see sometimes with hematology is that people taking blood thinners have to be very careful of the amount of vitamin K they're taking. So sometimes we're watching the diet, but we're not watching the supplements. So you need to be very careful, because it can throw your INR levels off when we get it that way. So that's something to be, even though immune boosters right now are really, really popular because they're helping to strengthen our immune system, especially during COVID times as well. Some people will say, what about vitamins and minerals? What's the best thing to take? Again, you need to check with your health team before taking anything. And, there's so many different products on the market. I'd encourage you that if you, again, to talk to someone who has training in it so that they know, and not just, things that are being sold because, hey, this so-and-so says this is good for you. The person themselves got to be able to apply all this information to your case and do an assessment on it. I don't believe in taking anything all the time. Your body gets used to it, and then when you need it the most, it doesn't really impede. Typically with any supplement, I'd be inclined to buy it from a natural health store compared to a broad-based manufacturer. And the reason being is that you get a higher grade, higher quality product. There's natural healthcare practitioners who have access to products that aren't even offered online or open to the general public, because again, they want to make sure that they're utilized properly. If I was going to go after anything of where a starting point would be to rebuild immunity and to kind of help manage, to be honest, I'd go with a probiotic. And the reason being, again, check with your physician, your oncology team first, is that a lot of times, no matter what we take, our gut health is really important for the absorption of it. So if you're going through chemo treatments and a whole pile of treatments, that's going to give us a lot of diarrhea, constipation, things like that. There's a lot of bad bacteria that can build up into our gut and intestinal tract. And, if we have diarrhea, we're losing it. And, not only are we losing the good stores, we're also losing the bad stores as well. So probiotic can actually help with our natural gut flora, which can actually help with the absorption of nutrients. From a holistic perspective, we look at digestion as key to optimal health and well-being. So if our natural gut flora is not in place, again, we're looking at vitamin and mineral content of what we can take. That can have a huge impact because are we absorbing it? And there's also something, again, we'll talk a little bit about vitamins and minerals as well, is that a lot of it, the absorption rate is not there if it's not combined properly with other compounds to help it absorb. So it's what we call bioavailability, and that can actually impede it as well. If you're going to look at a probiotic, again, under the discretion of your health team, make sure it comes out of a fridge for a product as opposed to anything that's on a shelf. It is a live bacterial culture and should be kept in a refrigerator and kept cool. As well, more is not always better of something. With a probiotic, I'd probably recommend if you're going to try it, start out at a 5 billion or 10 billion count. You can get them as high as 150 billion plus. If you took that and you're not used to taking it, it's going to cause a lot of GI distress and gas and bloating, constipation, diarrhea, things like that. And trust me, you do not need that on top of everything else you have going on. So that would be a great way to, start small with it. And keep in mind that if you are taking any antibiotics, not to take the probiotic with it, because antibiotics wipe out the good bacteria along with the bad bacteria, and we don't want to do anything to compromise the antibiotics when you have to take them. So I hope that makes sense in terms of natural health products and supplements. Keep in mind, in Canada, there is no regulation on natural health products, and we're not always assured of what's on the package or containers actually in that product as well. And sometimes it's the fillers and compounds that are in those products that can cause more detriment to our health than the products themselves. Alrighty, so that's nutritional side of things. So obviously sleep habits very, very important to make sure that we're establishing a regular sleep routine. Aim for at least 6 hours of regular sleep, stay in the dark, invest in earplugs, unplug phones and electronics, and remind family of quiet time. If you're tired, please rest. And a lot of times we're taught to be go, 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 go. The only way, there I go, touch my face again. Get the hand sanitizer here. Our immune system naturally heals and repairs itself when we're sleeping. So because of all the treatments, so whether you're going through treatment right now or you're in the recovery stage, immunity is really, really important. And that's why sleep and rest is so important, because that's how we naturally build up our immune system. From the inside out, your body's running a marathon trying to heal and repair itself. So that's where, again, your sleep is going to be very, very important there as well. A lot of times it's like, close the curtains, lock the doors, don't let anybody know I'm taking a nap. Well, guess what? You need to take a nap while your body's going through all the measures that are in place, because again, your health is what, at the end of the day, is what matters the most. Keeping a positive attitude goes really, really important. Positive affirmations, and this is where mindset can take us a long ways. Wake up happy, not grumpy. A lot of times our mood for the day is depicted from the time we open our eyes in the morning, even before our feet touch the floor. So I try to practice gratitude and focus on things that we're grateful for, and that can sometimes help us have a wonderful day, which is really important. Socialize and have fun with others. Again, we're having to do that a little bit differently now because of COVID. But when you're going through treatments for cancer, it also helps. We also have to socialize differently as well, just based on that alone. So again, as we talked about, we can socialize from afar using technology. We had a little chat, actually, girls I grew up with. We've been friends for 40 plus years, over 40 years. We did a thing on, I think it was Messenger or one of the apps. Anyways, I'm not the most technically savvy person. They know what they were doing. But two of us for St. John's were on two different links from it, and we zoomed in with our friends in Calgary and Edmonton. It was absolutely fabulous. Sat down, had a cup of tea together. So really important to make sure that we can still socialize and have fun in wake of everything going on. It's making light of it, and that's what helps get us through. You know, it goes a long way. And do something nice for someone else. A lot of times it's amazing the feeling of gratitude this can give us. You know, a lot of times music can be something we can do for something else. Even just a smile to somebody and a hello. What I'm noticing, even when you're coming and going, is that people right now seem like they're more scared than anything, and people are walking heads down. Doesn't mean we can't smile and communicate. So we can still communicate at a distance, but that's where, again, something nice for someone else. Again, some people like flowers. It could be just saying a quick hello. We do drive-bys sometimes where we'll just get in the vehicle and go and see friends and bump our horn and call and say, hey, look out your window, we're outside, or do up a little sign just to say hi. So little things like that go a long way, and it means so much to people. People will always, always remember how you made them feel. So that's something that we can take moving forward as well. So conclusion for eating healthy during a pandemic, you know, we talked about parameters around it and the importance of eating healthy and how to look at things. It's important to balance our plate. If we're balancing our plate, that's going to give us a, you know, good balance of nutrient content throughout the day. Do something daily for your health. The little things of what you do on a daily basis add up to have a bigger impact on your health tomorrow and down the road. You can see that actually, I'll just talk about COVID. I mean, social distancing, they've been pushing that, pushing it, pushing it. And it's the little things of what we do on a daily basis. Here in Newfoundland and Labrador, as of yesterday, I never heard today's update because, again, it was at 2 o'clock today. There goes the glasses again. You can tell my glasses are sliding here now. We've had no new cases of COVID as of yesterday for 6 days in a row. But this all stems from stuff we've been doing over the last 2 or 3 weeks in little dribs and drabs. So, you know, do something daily for your health. It does make a huge difference. And again, we're living and experiencing that right now as well. And make your life a healthy balance. You know, to be healthy is not just about healthy eating. It's about keeping a positive attitude. It's about sleeping. It's about having fun in life. It's about exercising, getting the activity. It's about meditating, feeling grateful. So many different wonderful, you know, things of what we've been doing for our overall health and well-being on a daily basis. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter with our group as well, Healthy Balance Holistic Health Group. I will share recipes on our social media. We also have a team of counselors, acupuncture, registered massage therapists, meditation, yoga, things like that. And everybody kind of gravitates and throws things up on social media. So it might be a way that, again, if you want to go in and peek, you can actually take a look, and there'll be information there of things of what you can do from day to day as well. So I'm going to hand it back over to you, Sonia, if you're there.
I'm here. Thank you so much, Tara.
Guys, you're kindly welcome.
Thank you. That was really great information, and thanks so much for sharing your expertise and insight. I'd like to now open the doors to the question and answer period. So for all of you who are listening and who have questions related to this topic, I'd like to remind you to please use the questions or chat function. We did have some questions that came in throughout the presentation. So first question is, during this time, I only try and go shopping every 10 to 14 days. And in doing so, I've been buying more shelf-stable foods like canned soups. My body is surely telling me that I'm not eating healthy, but I'm not quite sure how to get back on track.
I know, and that's the thing with fresh produce. You know, frozen produce has the same nutrient value as fresh. We talked about this a little bit earlier, but I'd be inclined to make up a good stock of soup yourself and freeze it in your individual portion sizes. There might be local cafes that you can get some homemade soup, because homemade compared to canned is going to be, for nutrient, especially vitamin content, a lot of vitamins are really heat sensitive. So when it goes to the canning process, a lot of our nutrients are displaced and broken down. So we really don't get that true value. And sometimes the sodium can be through the roof in it. You know, we need a certain amount of sodium, but not over, you know, excessive amounts. So it doesn't have, it might taste good. That's probably why it tastes good. But I'd be inclined to try to find some fresh soup that you make yourself and freeze it, or to buy some from a local chef or a restaurant that has a chef that is already frozen. Freezing is increasing the shelf life just on that as well. Keep in mind for food safety, because the issue of shelf life does come up. If you do make a pot of soup, so let's say, for example, you cook some chickens today, today's Friday, and you cut up the chicken and had that for a couple of days, and then you kept the frames to make some chicken soup. and then on Monday you decided to make chicken soup out of the frames of what you cooked today, keep in mind that that frame, even though you're boiling it out for soup, typically when we cook foods, you want to eat it within 3 to 4 days, and bad bacteria can still build on it even though it's in the refrigerator. So now you're taking soup that's got 3 days worth of bacterial built up, and you don't start from scratch just because you made soup. So if you're sitting down eating that soup on Wednesday or Thursday of next week, that soup and bacterial count is now a week old. So that can again contribute to bad bacterial buildup in the gut, cause some diarrhea, nausea, things like that as well. So food safety is something to do it. So if you are going to make your own soup, if you cook whatever protein source you're in today, make the soup today and then freeze it in your individual portion sizes. So then when you actually thaw it out, you have a day or two to play with on that end. When you freeze food, the bacterial count lies dormant, so it basically goes to sleep. And when you thaw it out, it starts building and growing again. So you have the base amount and then you're adding to that as well. So keep that in mind.
That's great. Thank you, Tara. Is plant-based nutrition diet better for cancer patients? Is animal food advisable? And if so, how much?
The science has been, over time, for centuries, there's countries that, again, do more plant-based diets as well. I think it's important to do what you're comfortable with. A lot of people, I have clients that come in and they want to do a plant-based diet. I'll show them how to do it properly. What ends up happening sometimes when people attempt to switch to plant-based is that they're not giving themselves adequate amount of protein. And especially when you're going through some cancer treatments, I know with Ava, some of the medications that she took actually threw her blood sugars out of whack, and her blood sugar spiked right off. So blood sugar regulation is really, really important. And if we're not getting enough protein helps stabilize our blood sugar. So that could be a problem there as well. So basically, if someone comes in and they want to do plant-based, I tend to increase their protein requirements by about 10%. As to how much protein we need in a day, it depends on your activity level. Typically, it's anywhere between 0.8 to 1.5 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. So the more active we are, the more protein that we need. So again, I increase that by 10%. If you are going to try plant-based, make sure you go for color. If we eat just one type of, say, bean or lentil and not eat others, you're only getting a partial amino acid. It's an incomplete protein. So if I made a pot of chili and it was like a vegetarian or plant-based, I might put chickpeas, black beans, kidney beans in it, because the more color there is, it assures me that I'm getting that proper balance of amino acids in there as well.
Thank you. Another question, does organic mean healthy?
That's a really good question, actually. You need to be careful of that, because sometimes, especially in the health section of the supermarket, it doesn't always mean healthy, especially if it's a processed food. So sometimes if something is in the organic section of canned food or boxed foods, frozen foods, things like that, it's not as healthy. The only thing that organic means is that it's, again, there's been no chemicals used in the prepping of it, but it doesn't mean that something, like something can still be high in unhealthy fats, high in sodium, high in sugar content, and still being on that aisle as well. So be very careful. We need to look at products on a whole and not just for one of the boxes of what the marketers are trying to put it in. I've looked at some tomato sauces, for example, that came out of a natural health section, organic, and it's sometimes quadruple the sodium content that's in them. So treat it as the same as what you'd find on any other shelf to make a difference. In saying that, when we look at produce, this is where it can come into and make a huge difference in fresh produce. Years ago, it was so expensive to buy organic fresh products. Here now, we're seeing a lot of farmers are, and farmer markets would be more of a place to avail of those, which this time of year we tend not to have. But in the supermarket, sometimes they will cover or will carry organic produce. Keep in mind, it's not going to last as long for shelf life, so you really only want to buy enough for 2 to 3 days. When I was in university 25 years ago, we didn't, again, we asked the organic question, and it was just like, well, no, and leave it alone kind of thing, whereas the holistic program really availed of that. And I think there's a lot of merit to it, to the pesticides, chemical use, and we're seeing more studies. It takes about 20 to 25 years to get a good study, and we're starting to see some studies come out now to show the benefits of not using the pesticides on fresh produce.
Thank you, Tara. Does slow cooking reduce nutritional value?
That's a good question. I think it depends what your temperature is that you're of the product of what you've got in the slow cooker. Typically, a slow cooker is going to be on a lower temperature, cooked for a longer period of time. If you notice for food safety, I think it's over 170 degrees Fahrenheit or Celsius Fahrenheit that would be shown on your stove or on the pot as well. And I can't see that that would decrease nutritional value. So typically what we see is high temperatures that would decrease nutritional value. And the good thing is if something's in a slow cooker, if any nutrients are displaced, there's usually a sauce component to it, so we tend to eat it anyways, which is pretty neat. I love slow cookers, I guess is what I'm trying to say in a roundabout way. It's a great way to make your healthy food convenient.
I agree, Tara, me too. Is there anything that needs to be completely avoided while undergoing cancer treatment?
It's a good question. It depends on what you are experiencing, and that's where your conversation with your health team. If there's a dietitian on hand on your health team, they will inform you if things should be avoided. I mean, just off the cuff from a holistic perspective, I would avoid anything that's too processed. Anything that has a high chemical content, I'd be very wary of, because again, we don't know the long-term effects of what that has and how it can alter our cellular structure. One thing I would be careful of are trans fats, because again, for heart health and its connection to contributing to free radical damage. Free radical damage can obviously increase the aging process, but it can also help spread things around as well. So we want to keep those at a minimal as well.
Thank you. I have an interesting question here. I have fibromyalgia and osteoarthritis. I'm trying to find foods that don't cause inflammation. Any suggestions?
Again, and I love this question because again, it's a combination of different things. So obviously what works for one doesn't work for all and all that good stuff. There are foods that we can do for an anti-inflammatory diet. For me personally, I'd have to look at what you're eating on a whole to be able to make recommendations for that. Cooking with spices, with turmeric, cumin, coriander, all have compounds that can actually help reduce inflammation in the body. Healthy fats help reduce inflammation in the body. Reducing down sugar content helps reduce inflammation in the body. So there's lots of things of what we can do without having to avoid things, and how often we have it as well. So, when people come in, I will design something, but if you went online now and Googled an anti-inflammatory diet, it can be pretty restrictive. So it's being able to find things that can help nourish while reducing down the inflammation as well, I guess, is where it comes into play. And whether it be fibromyalgia, osteoarthritis, inflammation is inflammation, right, of where it comes into play. So, I think it's important to reflect that in. Surprisingly, one thing that's really important for both would be, especially with, any inflammation from joints and throughout the body as well, is fluid balance, making sure we are getting that 2 liters of water in a day and not eating excessive amounts of sodium. When we look at fluid balance in the body, when you have inflammation in the body's immune system goes in to try to get the inflammation out. To do that, it puts fluid in to help flush it out. So if you're having a lot of inflammation and your fluid balance is off, our body naturally, when we get dehydrated, is going to put more fluid in that one area. So we just added fuel to the fire, basically, of what's going on, and we can go from a bad to worse scenario. I personally don't have arthritis, but I can wake up in the morning like this and close my eyes, and I can tell you if I have fluid on my body because I'm stiff and sore in my joints. I can feel it in my hands. So that's something to keep an eye for there as well. Dehydration is something, obviously a lack of water will dehydrate us, a diet that's really high in sodium, medication, so any antibiotics, anti-inflammatories, antihistamines can contribute to fluid balance issues. Hot, humid weather can do it. Humidity does. Flights, so if we're on a plane, sometimes you'll see that people take their shoes off and they can't get them back on, and that's because, again, fluid balance is in there as well. So there's a number of ways, hormonally, depending where we are in our cycle, we can put a couple of pounds of fluid on in that balance as well. So there are all other factors, and I don't think it gets talked about enough for fluid balance and its contribution to inflammation in the body as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Tara. We don't have any time for any further questions.
Sonia, just one more thing I just thought about as well.
Yeah.
One thing actually that just creeped in my mind, one of our massage therapists here, Chelsea Billing, she has, and some massage therapists have specialized training in lymphatic drainage. And that can actually help, that treatment can actually help reduce fluid as well, and actually get some of the fluid moving throughout the body. So it might be something to look into. Again, checking with your medical team and with the registered massage therapist. So it would be a registered massage therapist with extra training and to become a certified lymph drainage therapist as well. So that could be another avenue in addition to nutrition that you might find very beneficial as well. And sometimes acupuncture can help as well. And activity, movement makes a big difference to inflammation. It gets things going.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Tara. So that's all the time we have for our question and answer period. So I'd like to thank everyone for participating today, and a special thank you to Tara for sharing with us today. Much appreciated.
So much. You're kindly welcome.
Thank you. If you don't mind changing to the next slide, I just want to remind everyone that our community engagement managers are there to help you in your region. We do have information on currently available grocery services in your province, or if you need any more information about this topic or even any of our support services, we invite you to reach out to our community engagement managers in your region. You can do so by email, or you can call locally at those displayed on the screen right now. Or you can also call toll free at 1-833-222-4884. Thank you. And one more thing I'd like to remind everyone is if you'd like to watch all of our past webcasts, these are available on our website. So some examples are COVID-19, looking after your mental health, or another, finding gratitude and practicing yoga and meditation during COVID-19. You can do so by going to our website at llscanada.org/webcasts and clicking on the webcasts of interest to you. I'd like to remind everyone that a short survey will be sent out to all participants after this webcast. We would greatly appreciate you taking a moment to fill it in, as it would really help us to offer you the most valuable information in the near future. Thank you all once again for joining us. Have a wonderful day and stay safe.
Bye.